of Churches has said the country is entering a new age of coalitions. Speaking at a media briefing at the IEC Result Operation Centre in Pretoria, Bishop Malusi Mpumulwana has also added that coalitions are likely to test our democracy's maturity.
The timing of opening and closing of polling stations differed around the provinces. In the Eastern Cape, service delivery protests delayed the opening of polling stations. In the Western Cape, one polling station was reported to have closed early. There were reports of challenges in some provinces with supporters of different parties threatening to fight outside voting stations. There is some work to be done in appropriate staff training and human resource management, particularly where there were younger, more energetic staff persons who may have lacked the experience on how to manage certain situations as they arise, which could have led to unwarranted tensions, especially in KwaZulu-Natal. Response times from senior electoral staff was swift and highly commendable. But we think that the identification of presiding officers is important. In many stations, you could not tell who the presiding officer is, apart from the rest of the electoral staff, in order to make sure that they are clearly more visible indeed. Regarding venues selected for voting across the provinces, there have been some questions about the privacy of voters who stem from the size of the voting stations themselves. In addition to this point, we also observed that the venues were prohibitive for easy access to physical challenges, with some provinces reporting high steps, which made it difficult for people with disabilities to access the polling stations. Related to that is the need to revise the Braille template used for those with sight limitations. The main complaint is that blind people do not have in the template the names of political parties or candidates to choose from by themselves. We appreciate that there is a challenge of time frames in calendaring between the date announcement, the list preparation by political parties ahead of printing ballot papers. We appeal that some consideration be given to possible adjustments to the time frames, obviously within the limitations of the law. Most provinces reported high voter activity despite the more than 40% voter apathy figures. The numbers of first-time voters appears to have been high, with the younger citizens of the municipalities taking up the call to make their vote count. We commend this. The elections have changed the face of our political landscape, with the traditionally governing party not attaining majority in significant municipalities like the Nelson Mandela Metro. It should be noted that the ANC was gracious in accepting this situation, as they have done before in other instances. There were no street protests clamoring for the denial of results. There were no military troops threatening the integrity of our democracy. These are things that we take for granted, and we should not. South Africa's electoral culture has come to its own. Indeed, the emerging results suggest that we are now entering a new phase of our constitutional democracy, the age of coalition governance. This is likely to test our maturity, as political parties will no longer be able to guarantee the realization of only the promises of their manifestos. Negotiation and compromise will have to be the way of doing business and minimize the filibustering. We're learning and we're growing. As we conclude, we wish to make the point that the democratic culture and democratic ethic is a shared responsibility between the citizens and government. Citizens, through their elected representatives, are co-creators of the levers of state and its institutions. Elections are thus the contractual mechanism for such a sharing of the responsibility and the burden of governance. But the poser remains for citizens beyond the election date of sustaining a healthy understanding of their responsibility as partners in governmental ethos for the common good. For the 2016 local government elections, the SABC Observer and Pastoral Mission declares that the elections were free and fair, and a good basis for the moral contract being established between the citizens and those elected to govern their day-to-day life.